So here's a good one for you guys that you may or may not have read. I haven't read it up until recently, and I didn't even really read it up until recently. I found an audiobook on YouTube and listened to it. The Troop by Nick Cutter, which is his pen name. It's a like a disease body horror book, but it grounds its body horror in factual disease extremely well, which like a lot of body horror doesn't do, right? A lot of body horror is just like friggin' something like Hellraiser, where he grows out of like blood spilt on the ground after he goes to the demon realm, and it looks all gross and slimy and shit. Or something like the Iron Man, and he gradually turns into like a robot. Like, that's pretty fucked up. Or something like, I don't know, maybe The Thing, where it's like if just a little part of the organism gets in you, it can mutate you to like a horrible fucking alien thing, and it can perfectly imitate itself as, say, like a dog, and then the dog turns into a big horrible insect fucking thing, and it looks absolutely horrifying. Or even something like The Fly, where Goldblum gradually and horribly turns into the fly, and his fingernails fall out, and then his teeth fall out. Or even like something like The Howling, or An American Werewolf in London, or something like that, where it has like a slow, horrible transformation that looks extremely painful and fucking just absolutely brutal and nasty. Like something like that. But like the main issue with all of these is they're all supernatural, or at least not grounded, right? The Thing's aliens, Hellraiser is, you know, otherworldly gods, deities / entities. Yeah, The Fly, we haven't created teleporters yet, so we can't teleport a human with a fly to blend them genetically and then have a slow metamorphosis. None of them are grounded particularly well, but The Troop is. The Troop just takes like a disease, like a regular old disease, which is like worms, and then it absolutely fucking supercharges it to fucking 1 million. It makes it so the worms literally make you food starve within like a series of like 2 days or something like that. It's absolutely fucking brutal. Like, even just like the description of the test monkeys, which they have in between to demonstrate how horrible this shit is and how high the stakes are and how violent and horrible the worms will cause you to react, basically. And like even the description of the loss in weight from all the food that the worms are eating, and the worms gradually protrude out your eyes and your asshole and your wounds and all that sort of thing. Absolutely fucking horrifying body horror. It's really fucking absolutely brutal. It is some of the most brutal body horror I've read for a while. And then like that mixes in with all the other themes, like when it comes to morality and survival. So it's about, basically, the book is about a Boy Scout troop that goes to like a secluded island, and like a patient zero that escapes from a facility or something, who's escaping, and he's like in the midst of this horrible set of worms, right? So this horrible set of worms causes him to fucking eat until he bursts, literally, internally. But he's still hungry, and he's still losing weight and wasting away. So it's like absolutely fucking horrible, horrifying fucking disease. He's on the run. He goes to a diner. He orders a bunch of these fucking meals. He fucking eats the whole lot. It's like an inhuman amount of food. And he's still hungry, and he drives past a raccoon and he has this like little monologue about thinking about eating the raccoon because he's so hungry. Like, it really captures the idea well of starvation and the desperation from starvation and all that sort of shit, but it still grounds it well in like a disease, right? A singular disease. It's like supercharged worms. Anyway, Patient Zero goes to the island where the boys and the Boy Scout leader are doing their Boy Scout things, and immediately the Boy Scout leader gets fucking infected by this guy. The dude like coughs some fucking worm goo up on his cheek, and apparently these ones, I don't think regular worms can burrow through skin, but these ones can. I think some types can. And the troop leader gets infected by this, and just like over a couple of like hours, it looks like he loses like a tremendous amount of weight. And then the boys sort of do a little coup on the Boy Scout leader, because one of the boys is like a fucking asshole bully. And then the asshole bully gets infected by drinking the Boy Scout leader's fucking grog. So it transfers from, you know, fluids and fluid touch, basically. And just like all the descriptions of it, the sickly sweet way that people smell when they waste away, like, that's pretty accurate to real life if you have been in an old folks' home and seen someone in hospice that's wasting away. Like, there is that medicine-y smell. And like, all the descriptions in the book are absolutely fucking fantastic and horrifying from like a body horror perspective. Like, it really is quite a good book. It is quite an experience. Like, if you're into horror and you haven't heard about this one, maybe give it a shot. But I think it was like absolutely brilliant that the method of losing control wasn't like unstated or just interpreted as something like transforming into a beast or something like that. The mechanism for you know, the people who are infected with this thing losing control is hunger, which is like a very real mechanism and a very effective mechanism to drive people to desperation. And because it's so effective, it grounds itself incredibly well and incredibly realistically. I think it's just incredibly well written, like, form of body horror to properly ground the body horror loss of control in something like hunger. It's just incredibly well done. And like, they could have gone the other way with it completely, right? Because there's like other examples of worms creating insatiable hunger and then creating body horror out of that. And like, one of those was the movie Slither, where you have fucking Michael Rooker feeding the fucking fat lady until she's into a, like, she transforms into a ball full of worms and then just bursts. But like, that's played for comedy, that's played like humorously. Like, the worms in this function as like real life worms. Like, they cause people to completely waste away, get really hungry, get dizzy, lose tremendous amounts of weight, muscle, their sinews and their muscles go. Like, it's fucking horrible, fucking brutal. Then they have like distended stomach from, you know, the gorging, getting an extremely fat gut, and then the worms eating all the nourishment out of the gut, so it causes like a swollen, distended stomach. Ugh. And that, like, that is realistic in and of itself, and in between it's got extremely realistically written tests that they're conducting on the worms and stuff. Like, there's one dude doing a lab test on a monkey, and it's just absolutely fucking harrowing just reading what this happens to this monkey. And it's just like, it eventually starts like pulling its fur out and eating its fur and then eating its hand, and then the the worm grows fucking huge and then comes out its ass and it's like a fucking meter long worm, and then it's an absolutely brutal body horror. And by this point in the story, one dude's already died from it and another dude's infected from it, but the dude who died from it sort of died not quite off screen, but sort of off screen. Like another character who was also infected was witnessing it, and it's just absolutely brutal. And it just lays out with this monkey test, which is in between the chapters, exactly what the character's going to go through with it. Like, even something like it's just extremely well integrated with its themes and everything like that, right? Something like Cabin Fever, which is a cult classic which people love. I reckon it's kind of goofy, especially the Karate Kid yelling cheeseburger or whatever it was. They're doing karate moves on the dude, and the dude's just sitting there watching him horrified. Like, that's goofy in Cabin Fever. Cabin Fever's just... It's sort of like that, but like just not as good, not as well integrated into the themes of survival or morality around survival and that sort of thing. Like, Cabin Fever was just a series of assholes getting infected with like a flesh-eating virus that kills them slowly. This kills them in a manner sort of similar to that, I guess you'd say, but it's well integrated with the themes of survival through hunger, because it makes them extremely hungry and desperate and all that sort of thing. And it's just, it hasn't been done before like that in cinema. And like, a lot of people were saying like this movie could never be made. You could make it, and it would be very effectively made too. Like, one of the characters is like the bully from It, who like likes to torture little animals and all that sort of thing. You could probably have left that character out or done more just with implication with that character, quite frankly, if you wanted to, adapt it into a movie. Like, it would be a great movie if you could adapt it into a movie. And like, look, we've seen as bad as shit in movies already. Like, Django had like a dick shot off like in the movie. I'm sure you can have like just a glimpse. Like for example, the movie The Outsider, the Stephen King adaptation of the movie The Outsider, which was like a spiritual successor to True Detective, and it had like a horrible murderer supernatural entity that could change its identity to frame people, and then it fed off all the suffering around the framing the people. Like, that had an implied murder in it of a boy getting a branch up his ass, like horribly, bitten to death, and had a branch rammed up his ass and all that sort of horrible shit, which is absolutely brutal. And it would be something that you would not be able to, put into a movie, like, obviously, because it's fucking absolutely brutal. But they just had like a fucking less than 2 second lingering on the shot, and it was just the branch sticking up, and anyone who was familiar with the story knew what that meant. So it was more done by implication. Like, you could do a lot with just the implication in this story if you wanted to adapt it into a movie, but boy, would you have to do some shit with the implication. Like, it would be extremely brutal for audiences to try and witness like the monkey scene visually, like the monkey eating its own fur and shit like that. Like, that's absolutely fucking brutal and harrowing to watch. I don't think you could pull it off in like a movie showing like the full thing, but you could do the implication of it and just focus on the scientist or whatever who's conducting the test. You could have him watching the glass and just focus on the scientist as he's making the notes with his recorder. Like, there would be ways you could get around the extreme gore and body horror in it. Also, it would be hard to visually capture, because like, when the characters have been wasting away, they become extremely skinny. So it would be hard to visually capture that with makeup, unless you got sort of fatter, bigger kids and then sort of used like skinnier kids with makeup in between. Like, it would be hard to get that across with makeup authentically. But if you could do that, like, this would be right up there with The Fly in terms of, you know, great body horror movies. Like, it seriously would if they could pull it off. They would just have to do a shitload through suggestion. Like, the themes and, like, the intermixing of the theme of, you know, starvation and that with survival and the morality of survival, which, you know, comes across later when the boys are trying to kill a turtle to eat it for survival and it won't die. But these aren't the psychopath, you know, kids that enjoy torturing animals. These are the moral kids that are trying to kill it and it won't die and it fucking basically destroys them. Like, there's... that mixes a lot better with survival than any other sort of the vague philosophical memes in other great, you know, well-regarded body horror movies, right? Like, for example, The Fly. In one of his lines was, "Oh, the insect is awake," or something, which is like kind of dumb and vague. It's like, okay, you're making like a weird philosophical allusion to insect politics because insects are simple and survival driven, and you're making like a morality link thematically to that with the goofiest fucking line ever, right? Have you ever heard of insect politics? Like, kind of goofy, whereas something like The Troop could be done a lot better and more sophisticatedly just with implication. Like, the implication, you could just have like a short story of people starving to death or something like that, and you could just interject that into the movie and it would fit perfectly thematically and it would set the scene. Like, you could say, did you know Bobby Sands survived like 2 months without food or a month without food or whatever it was? And go, who was Bobby Sands? Oh, he was the IRA guy. By the end, his body had literally started eating itself and he had bruises and lesions and shit all over it. Like, there would be ways you could integrate it into a story to turn it into a movie. And once they do, it will be one of the great body horror movies. It will probably be better than The Fly. And in terms of like conveying horrible shit through screen, like the Fly had some bad shit in it too. Like, when, I think it might have been a deleted scene, I can't remember if it was in the movie or it was a deleted scene, he tries to fucking, you know, teleport the baboon and the baboon gets like turned inside out but it's still fucking alive. Like, that's absolutely fucking horrifying. It's probably as bad as, if not worse than anything in this fucking book. And they conveyed that that scene in the movie perfectly. Like, it wasn't an issue. It's just how you get across it. Like, because some of the cruelty shit with, like, the fucking psychopath serial killer kid, like, you can't have him drowning kittens in bathtubs like he does in the book, right? But you can do it with implication. Like, I don't think his level of psychopathy in the book was completely necessary. Like, sure, you can have a psychopathic character in the book, but it's kind of gratuitous to have him kill as much animals and torture them as he does and all that sort of shit. Like, fair enough, you're making a statement about a psychopath's, you know, ability to survive easier and what they do when they get the opportunity to become, you know, fucked up. But you can do it a lot more with implication and you don't need to take it as far. Like, Stephen King did that in It as well, when it was one of the Bowers gang's kid was doing similar shit. Like, he was like locking like dogs in fucking old abandoned fridges and, you know, watching them suffocate and shit like that. Like, psychopaths in books, you can do it a lot more with implication. Like, you don't need to, you know, be absolutely fucking as horrible as you are in the book. And if, like, this would have been adapted into a movie by now way more easily than anything else if you could have just used more implication in it rather than the graphic nature of it, if you know what I mean. And the book's good as well. Like it grabs you right from the start. Like, you know, few other stories sort of do. It does not fuck around at all. Like, the first thing in it is basically the fucking Patient Zero guy, and it just describes what he's doing and like how he's running. He's trying to run from authorities and all that sort of shit. Just trying to survive, even though he knows he's got this horrible fucking thing. It's implied later that he was a test subject for money, and that the researcher dude that got him is a bit of a fucking psychopath. So he sort of anticipated all this sort of shit happening. But like, it just grabs you right from the start. Like, one of the most compelling parts about, you know, Stephen King's The Stand as a comparison was the opening, the spreading of the fucking disease that wipes out most of the people. Like, and I think Nick Cutter knew that when he was writing his book. Like, and it just grabs you right from the start. Like, it really is a well-written book. And like, that's the same for a lot of, you know, zombie movies and that sort of thing. Like, sure, you can get into all of the survival politics and everything like that later on. And you can do all your Walking Dead drama of, oh, we are the Walking Dead. No. But usually the more compelling parts of a movie are the initial outbreak and the initial immediate reactions to it and how it spreads. I guess maybe because it's like sort of harder to predict how people would exactly react to that sort of shit. Like, what would happen? Would they throw up roadblocks and quarantines immediately? Would they, you know, initially try to get people into hospitals and then quarantine them? Like, it's sort of hard to predict. Like, 28 weeks later did that really well, but they were sort of in like a high alert system, if you know what I mean, rather than an initial unpredicted outbreak. But like movies like the Dawn of the Dead remake that show like the initial, it just turns to shit immediately with like fast zombies that you need to destroy their head to, you know, stop. They would be incredibly effective in spreading like a disease like that incredibly quickly, because you need a headshot to stop them. They can take infinite damage to their chest and torso. And like the initial police would be more focused on physically restraining them, so would, you know, likely take bites and stuff like that. Even once it turned into a riot type situation, they wouldn't immediately turn to guns and stuff like that. And even when they did, they're not aiming for headshots, so they still have the opportunity to be overwhelmed, just given the speed and the ferocity of the zombies. Like, all of that is usually the more intriguing, you know, parts of the story rather than the aftermath. But even in things like 28 days later, where it had like the completely empty town and like the missing people in the bulletin board and all the people, you know, dead in the church, like that stuff's sort of intriguing as well, because it's sort of like a detail we wouldn't normally get. Like, you wouldn't normally get the detail, okay, people are going to mass turn to Christianity if there's like a situation where there's like a rage virus or something like that. They're immediately going to, you know, abandon all the bullshit atheism and all that sort of thing. Like, it's sort of like a nice and genuine touch in like a zombie movie to get that sort of stuff across. Just that sort of unique detail in a story that you don't normally get, which you wouldn't normally anticipate, but adds like that little bit of realism into the story, which grants it like authenticity. And The Troop is one of those. It has a lot of authenticity in it, just in the character reactions and how the disease functions and all that sort of deal. And it's usually like those sort of little details that grant things, you know, that level of authenticity which, you know, elevates the story. Like, if you think of like Phantom Pain, like the first time you played through that, and then you go into the the little medical, skull-face medical research bit where they've got all the child soldiers, the African child soldiers, and they're all trying to... They're spreading the vocal cord parasites in the child soldiers and all that sort of thing. They're testing them on the child soldiers and stuff. Like, that sort of detail in Phantom Pain gave it like this authenticity to the story. Like, until then, like, it wasn't probably going to be R-rated, but the second that they brought in, you know, the child soldiers and child test research subjects from fucking Afghanistan and Africa into it, like, that's a fucking brutal little detail to add to the story, and it'll grant your story depth. Just because, you know, actual real life fucking research on vaccines and shit has been done in the past on, you know, African children and that sort of shit. And it's just like a good little piece of authenticity in a story. That, like, a detail from something that would happen in real life, which, you know, just gives the story more depth. But yeah, anyway, The Troop by Nick Cutter. Give it a read, give it a listen. If you're short of money, I think there's this dude who breaks down, like, you know, brutal horror novels and body horror novels and stuff like that on YouTube. And it was just like a 2-hour breakdown summary of the novel. And, like, if you don't have the money to buy the audiobook, you know, you could probably give that a shot. You'd lose some of the detail in the novel or the audiobook, but it is cheaper if you're short of cash or whatever. Goku. Shish.